Good morning, Justin. How are you?
Howdy. Buenos dias. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Is it snowing this morning in West Virginia?
No, but yesterday we had another half inch.
Dude, I don't understand it. But hey, kudos to you. Kudos to you for living where it snows into end of April. I guess in theory it could snow here on the coast. Anyway, this is not a meteorology podcast. Follow Justin and I on our other podcast where we talk about that's food for thought, Justin. We're gonna dive deep today on EV architecture, right? The idea that maybe you can actually charge an EV as quickly as you fill up with gas. I mean, maybe not as quick, pretty close. That's what we'll dive into. Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on how many miles you need. There's so many nuances. I look forward to also asking the viewers and listeners what they think about this.
So let's mention two things really quickly. One is the Plugged In podcast is now live on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So just search for YAA Electric and you should see the Plugged In podcast there. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please leave us a review. The first person that leaves us a review, that'll mean so much to us. So please do that. And the second thing, Justin, is there's quite a few folks with us already. Christopher's here this morning. Jordan's here. Freddie's here. Sean's here. Mark's here. Learning Fast. Andrew, Neil, George, Snow Ranger. You gotta teach us some new things today. I mean, we've got a lot of folks that are with us.
Yeah, and I saw there's an EV6 owner out there, and that's going to be relating to what we're talking about first, which is the fancy schmancy 800-volt architecture that the EV6 does have.
Yeah, let's dive into it, Justin. So what is 800-volt architecture and why, as a consumer, as a layman, should I care?
So it all comes down to this question, not only for drivers, but also for automakers and their engineers. Would you rather have faster charging or more range? Sure, you'd love to have both, and maybe that can happen too if you buy a $150,000 Lucid, but would you rather have more range or faster charging? Now, for the past decade and a half, all EVs have been built on 400-volt architecture, or at least within the past 7 or 8 years. 400-volt architecture, it's good enough. Even BMW's senior engineer recently said, it's good enough. That's literally what he said. But it's not the best. I'm sure he had some other reasons for saying that. But
Yeah.
400-volt architecture basically means that, well, Tesla has mastered it. Tesla still operates on 400-volt architecture. You can charge an EV at up to maybe 220 kilowatt speeds. You could top off that large battery, usually about 75 kilowatt battery, within, let's say, 30 minutes, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you can't get much better than that at a 400-volt capacity. Now,
Mm-hmm.
what is voltage, by the way? It's the
Yeah, can we
pressure of
start there?
yeah. Ooh, there's so much to get into. All right. Voltage is the pressure of the electrical current that is getting pushed into wherever it's going. So in this case, into the battery. You drive up to a charging station, you plug in. The voltage is going to be the pressure of the electrical current that's getting pushed into your car. It's basically like in a hurry. Now, if you double that from 400 to 800 volts, you're getting twice the pressure on that electrical current shooting into your car. So basically, here's what it comes down to. You can have twice the power delivery if you have 800 volts versus 400 volts with the same wires. Now, why does it matter? Because if you ended up needing larger wires to supply twice the current, that's going to be added weight, added cost. Who knows if the battery chemistry can handle that? So if you can end up having twice the voltage with the same or even smaller diameter wires, that's going to end up saving you some money, saving you some weight, and ultimately improving range.
We've got a comment here from Learning Fast. High rates of charge aren't as helpful if your battery is twice the capacity. That's the problem with Lucid, Rivian, and Hummer. I think I'm understanding. This is like a flashback to me to like I guess my chemistry classes that I don't know if I did so well in. I did well in English. So help me out in understanding here. More volts doesn't necessarily just mean it's better. It's not like bigger is better.
So learning fast is 100% correct. And I want to use the ridiculous Hummer as our example here, as our case study. The Hummer's battery is triple the size of my IONIQ 5's battery. Now, it can charge kind of fast, but if your battery is triple the size of almost every other EV's battery, it's still going to take forever to charge. So it's not like a one size fits all solution. Learning fast is correct. And I want to make sure and point out that there are multiple solutions that engineers are working on to make living with an EV less of a hassle and more similar, more akin to what it's like to live with an ICE vehicle. There's different battery chemistries under the works, and some of them are already coming to market, like the LFP batteries that Tesla's using in the standard range models now. You've got solid state batteries,
Mhm.
which can revolutionize the whole game, but so far none of them are in production.
Mhm.
And then you've got this different charging infrastructure that could deliver twice the power with the same general vehicle architecture. And essentially what that does is it makes charging almost twice as fast. So my IONIQ 5, it has a 72 kilowatt hour usable battery. I can charge up about 80% of the battery capacity in 20 minutes, whereas the Volkswagen ID.4, which has a very similar sized battery, it can do the same in about 40 minutes. So this is where it comes down to, like, well, if you're traveling on the highway, what are you going to do in 20 minutes versus what are you going to do in 40 minutes? For me, 20 minutes is perfect. In my experience, I've found that it's perfect for me to go in and grab a bite to eat, use the restroom, walk around, stretch my legs, and then it's time to go. 40 minutes, that sounds like it might become more of a problem or an annoyance.
And the ID.4 is built on a 400-volt platform?
Yes. So let's go through the list of EVs that are currently on the 800-volt architecture, and there's not a lot of them.
And I just dropped the link in the chat, by the way, or if you're listening to the podcast afterwards, just Google search YAA 800-volt charging, and you'll find the article that Justin wrote about all this, which is how I learned about it in advance of the show.
Yeah, and it just might be in the description of the video too. We'll see. So, the Hyundai IONIQ 5 and Kia EV6 are both built on the eGMP platform, which is a partnership between Hyundai and Kia that is 800-volt architecture. So this platform provides very fast charging, decent but not supreme efficiency. So some have noted that some of Hyundai's older EVs, like the original Ioniq, they actually had much better efficiency. That could be largely due to aerodynamics. My car looks cool, but it's not super slippery when it's sliding through the air on the highway. It looks cool, but it's not very aerodynamic. But really fast charging is the overall triumph of the eGMP platform. You also have the Lucid Air, which costs more than twice as much as my car, but it also has 800-volt architecture. In fact, they label it as 900-volt architecture, but some engineers have played around with that in some charging tests and said that, well, basically with what we're able to do with actual charging stations and power delivery and motor output, it's really still just an 800-volt architecture. But if we were to improve something in the future, then it could possibly be 900-volt. But it's kind of cool. And then you've also got, let's see, the Porsche Taycan or Taycan. How do we say it? Porsche?
Probably the Porsche Taycan, but no one, we'll see.
All right. That is another fancy luxury car. It's a beautiful vehicle that's 800-volt. And then the upcoming Chevy Silverado Electric will be 800-volt. But interestingly enough, what's the number one competitor to the Silverado Electric, Zach?
The Ford F-150 Lightning.
Yeah, and they're not going to have 800-volt architecture.
That's
So while
interesting.
the average consumer may not notice this right now, as the public becomes more aware of how EVs work, this might end up being a sticking point for those who are cross-shopping the Silverado E versus the F-150 Lightning. Is the Silverado is going to be able to charge a lot faster than the F-150.
So, all right, I'm learning a lot here, but I also have more questions, and learning fast is hitting on one right here. You also have to consider the vehicle's efficiency. My Tesla won't charge at the same average speed as the Hyundai, the IONIQ 5, but the Tesla has much better efficiency.
Those
So
are
how do
facts
we
right there. Those are facts.
how do we measure efficiency? I'm trying to put together the equation for, like, we've got voltage, we've got wattage, we've got what other factors that ultimately lead to the efficiency of the vehicle.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of equations going on here. So efficiency, don't try to stress yourself out and sneak that into the equation, because there's the efficiency of the electric motors, and then learning fast. I'd love to know what you're talking about. Are you thinking of the efficiency of the vehicle itself, the drag coefficient? Because all of Tesla's models are far more efficient when it comes to drag than my vehicle. So that is why if you're driving, well, that's one of the reasons why if you're driving a Tesla Model 3, Tesla Model Y, you're going to be getting like, thank you, Jordan. You're going to be getting maybe 3.5 miles per kilowatt hour on the highway, whereas in my car, I've been getting more like 3 miles per kilowatt hour on the highway. It's just better at pushing through air with the sleek aerodynamic design, in addition to efficiencies built into the electric motors and all of the systems that connect the battery to the motor. There's always a loss of energy anytime energy is transferred. Also, when charging, there's a loss of energy when energy is transferred from the charger to the vehicle. That's why you may add 80 kilowatt hours of electricity to a gigantic Lucid Air battery, but you're only going to end up receiving like 78 kilowatt hours of electricity because you can really lose a whole 2 kilowatt hours through charging inefficiencies. So there's so much physics going on here with electric vehicles. And we must not forget that with combustion vehicles, there's a lot of physics too, but we've just gotten accustomed to letting the engineers deal with that, right?
Yeah, honestly, that's the truth. And then Jordan brought up another comment here. It's going through my head. Charging faster equals more heat equals more degradation. Isn't that a major consideration with these battery packs? Is how long they'll last up?
Yes. So if you go to a fast DC fast charger trying to get 230 kilowatts like the IONIQ 5 can handle, every day your battery is going to degrade much faster. So I don't do that. That's why it's best and highly recommended to always or charge at home when you can, or as often as you can. Do not DC fast charge every day. You'll end up with like 70 or 80% of the original battery capacity in just a few years if you do that. And that's not good. It would be horrible for the resale value of that vehicle.
We talk a lot about on the used car side, Justin, getting pre-purchase inspections on vehicles. I'm imagining the pre-purchase inspection 10 years from now is going to look very different because we're going to be checking the capacity of existing battery packs. And then I can't imagine, but maybe it exists. You'll help me out here. Each manufacturer probably has a different definition for what a fully degraded battery pack is. Like, what's the threshold? Is it when it holds 60% of its original charge that VW will replace the battery pack if it's under warranty? Is it 80%? Like, there's a lot of new open questions that'll need to be addressed by OEs, but also for consumers as they go to navigate this 5, 10 years from now.
Yeah, it's even been built into a few EV warranties. I don't recall which automaker. It might be Toyota with their upcoming BZ4X. If anyone out there remembers, shout us out in the comments. But a few EV automakers have said that, hey, 10 years from now, if your battery has less than 70% of the original rated capacity, we will replace your battery. That sounds pretty awesome to me. But once again, there's more layers of nuance. So you're not supposed to charge over 80 or 90% often if you want to have the best battery health. Now that sounds kind of ridiculous, right? Well,
Look at that comment from George. I've only used a DC fast charger 6 times in 5 years of owning EVs.
well, if you ever sell your EV, George, make sure and tell them that because that would be a good selling point.
Justin, that's like the equivalent of my dad. He always preaches like if you have the maintenance and history of the vehicle, that increases the resale rate a bit. Like you just said, you're going to be my dad someday. Like 30 years from now, you're going to be telling people, "Hey, if you've only charged it, tell that to someone." That's incredible.
Yeah, so it's also similar to how some people say, well, it has 150,000 miles on the vehicle, but they were mostly highway miles, right? And supposedly highway miles are not as hard on the vehicle. Well, you could say, yeah, it's got 100,000 miles on this EV, but 90% of the charging was done at home.
It'll be super interesting, Justin. I've had a few conversations with companies that allow you to, on an API level, capture the data that the car is like. The car runs on APIs, like application programming interfaces, to control different telematics and functions within the vehicle. There's a big interest in the tech space to be able to build consumer applications where you can track like not only the battery degradation, but like the full history of how fast you charged, how high you got the battery up, and like the consumer then owns that data so that then you don't have to just trust that they were quote highway miles or just level 1 or level 2 charging, charge ups. Like, it's super interesting. These new age cars have so much information that's captured that will ultimately impact the resale values and how people think about them. And it ties back to what architecture are they charging on? How are you taking care of the vehicle? But taking care of is defined differently now than ever before.
Yeah, so with EVs, it actually makes sense to take a look at the owner's manual before you start driving it, which I think we kind of got out of that practice in the past decades. But yeah, I took a look at mine and it says recommended charging to 80% and less going on a road trip to maximize battery health and longevity, things like that. And one other little topic I wanted to mention was that, like I said, 80% max charging, that's recommended for battery health. Well, now things are changing so fast. You also have other battery chemistries, such as lithium iron phosphate batteries, commonly known as LFP batteries. They're the first battery chemistry to make it into production, where they say from the get go, you can charge to 100% every day. So if my EV gets 250 miles on a charge, but I'm only supposed to charge to 80%, what's my real capacity? I'm bad at math, Zach, but maybe like what, 210, 220?
Something like
But
that.
then
Yeah.
this other guy comes along and he has his EV that's an LFP battery, but his is only rated for 230 miles on a charge, but he can charge to 100% every day. He actually has more usable range than I do. So,
I want to jump to the chat here.
math.
I've got 11 different comments that I want to pull up on the screen. So let's
I'm
run
done
through
with my
these.
battery rant, so I'm ready for this.
Something tells me I'm going to definitely strike a nerve with one of these. Snow Ranger, cute avatar. I am correct in understanding 800 volt is just on the car side, and a 350 kilowatt charger can support both 400 volt and 800 volt.
Yes, there is an inverter. I forget. There's inverters and converters. There's one of those things, inverters or converters, built into the car that can flip it to the right voltage. So, um, I don't even want to go into the details here, but yes, you are right.
Leave that one as a post on the
Yeah.
YAA
Whew.
community forum. Neil says, can we build an infrastructure for 800 volts to work in mass? Is that 2x the amount of power supply in the grid for it to work? That's a good question.
It's just delivering the power quicker.
So you
So
kind
not
of you need
necessarily. No.
so, but if you're delivering the power more quick, actually, I'm not going to pretend I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night. Although this could be behind a Holiday Inn Express. I mean, that
So
looks like a Holiday Inn Express.
So there is something interesting to that comment. So if you are delivering 75 kilowatt hours of electricity no matter what, but you're just doing it more quickly, well then yes, you do need to have the capacity within the power grid and within that transformer to supply that power that quickly. So technically that's correct, but I haven't seen anyone bring that up, and hopefully the smart people are thinking about this.
Here we go from Jordan. I get about 3.5 miles per kilowatt hour in my Chevy Volt, and learning fast. Got 5 miles per kilowatt hour this morning in his Model 3 Performance. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it must have been scooting around town at 30 miles an hour. I guarantee you that.
Now, this is interesting. On all of our other shows, we've got people telling us what gas prices are. Here's what kilowatt hours cost in Michigan. 17 cents or 0.17 cents in North Carolina, 0.11 cents per kilowatt hour. Super interesting to see that. We're second week of this show, Justin. I still don't even know how to interpret what I'm reading right here.
Yeah, it's a whole new world. So the price of electricity per kilowatt hour is going to be the new like dollars per gallon.
Not ready. I'm
Yeah.
learning. We've got a few more messages here. Andrew says, big warning, don't go to zero on your battery. Either my sister ruined her battery this way. Have you heard of that?
Yes, that is definitely possible. I don't know about the chemistry of it, but yes, that is bad for the battery. I've been in a Tesla where the battery charge was listed as a negative 2%. That's very bad for the battery. My friend has a Model 3. We were far from a charger and we had to make it there at negative 2%. Don't do that, guys.
Yeah, that must put stress on the battery and the vehicle, everything.
Yeah, everything.
We've got here from Intelligent Car Buying, Toyota is stating in their warranty 80% after 10 years. That's their, or no, that's not in their warranty. Excuse me. Toyota is stating 80% after 10 years, but they did not say that in their warranty, what the replacement policy is in their warranty. So I guess a degraded battery for Toyota is less than 80% of initial performance.
Yes, that's very common. I forget which automaker had said that they would replace it at a certain point, but yeah, that's starting to be a discussion because if you want to convince um, buyers who are very hesitant of EVs and EV technology to make the switch, well, you got to provide them some comfort that if this technology ends up not playing out very well in the long run, you'll help to find a remedy.
Yeah, absolutely. Christopher says here he has a question. Is it best to charge up to 80% every day or to charge to 80% and go till about 20% and then rerun that, go back up to
Oh,
80?
I completely understand your question, Christopher, and there's nothing wrong at all with just charging up to 80% every day. Don't feel like you need to let it run to 20%. That would also be a huge pain if what if you needed to drive to the hospital and you got 20% battery and you don't have enough to get there? Don't do that. Just charge to 80% if that's what the manufacturer recommends. And as far as everything I've seen with all the different owners' manuals, 80% is generally what's recommended. Unless you have an LFP battery, go to 100%.
Yeah, yeah. John's got an interesting question here. How many batteries do these new EVs come with and how are they disposed of?
They come with thousands of batteries.
That's
Now,
insane.
yeah, they are arranged either into packs, like actual packs. I'm trying to think of an example. Like, as imagine like a rectangular shaped plastic package with a
Yeah,
bunch of flat batteries in it. And then you have those different capsules arranged within the floor of the vehicle. Or you could go the Tesla route, which is a bunch of cylindrical batteries. They have different form factors. Like right now, they're switching to 4680 form factors, which basically look like a D cell battery. Yeah, that's a lot of batteries, 7,000 batteries. Tesla's latest battery technology looks like a cylindrical, like D cell battery that you put into some large electronic at home. Now, how do they dispose of them? There's a burgeoning industry of new recycling uh, businesses that literally find ways to make money out of recycling these batteries. Now, hopefully, EV battery recycling is a much larger industry by the time we actually need it in massive scale, because right now they're few and far between. But also, right now, there are not many EVs that are ending up in the landfill. So,
yeah.
yeah, we got to hope that that gets better.
So John's saying here that it's not like your typical car battery. And if I'm not mistaken, Justin, you did an awesome article on the joinyaa.com website where you talk about EV maintenance. And you have a typical quote car battery in EVs that you need to maintain over time as well. So it's definitely not like your typical car battery.
Yeah, I believe it's a 12-volt battery, the typical car battery. Well, guess what? My IONIQ 5 has one. I have a big old cube-shaped battery, just like the ones you buy at Walmart, sitting in the front hood of my IONIQ 5 electric vehicle. That's for powering the climate control, the radio, stuff like that, whenever the main battery is turned off. So Tesla has recently switched to moving away from that model, and other automakers likely will. But yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. You still might need to change the 12-volt battery every few years with an EV.
I was waiting for you to bring this up, Justin, but Jordan hit it first. He says Tesla uses 18,650 batteries, the same number that's in vape pens. I was waiting for you to drop that knowledge bomb.
I've never heard of 18650 battery. I don't know
I
what
think
that is.
he's I think you know. Oh wait, is this not a joke? I thought this was a joke. Is this serious? And I'm just
I
like
think that's a
not.
joke.
I hope it's a joke.
I think it's a joke.
Now the joke's me. Let's go to Tyler's question here. How important of a factor is fast charging to the mass adoption of EVs? And it's I want to like with my burgeoning, to use the same word you just used, understanding of all this technology, fast charging doesn't necessarily feel like it might be the right answer because of the battery degradation, and because it doesn't actually matter how fast you can charge if you add on, the Hummer EV battery pack to it. But it's an interesting question. How important is it? Because as consumers, we want stuff instantly.
So, in addition to the better charging infrastructure that we need, we're also seeing battery chemistries being changed to better handle fast charging. So, fast charging, in my opinion, is very important to the mass adoption of EVs. But as we just discussed, it's also damaging to the battery itself. Well, we've seen various battery chemistries where they're getting rid of cobalt, and solid state batteries in themselves are going to be a major player in this transition, especially starting in 2025. you've got these battery chemistries that are not going to degrade nearly as much, if at all, with repeated fast charging. Pair that with wider access to fast charging, and then you essentially have what we have with gas stations today, where you can just pull into any place you want and plug in, and you'll be ready to go in 10 or 15 minutes. And another thing to keep in mind is that um, shared housing or apartments, multifamily dwelling units, I believe is what it's called. There's a large movement around the United States and around the world to provide access to slower charging, like overnight charging, which is just fine for the battery at all different types of housing. So make it affordable to install in your garage for a few $100s, have it accessible at different apartment complexes, hotels, all different types of residences, so that you don't necessarily rely on fast charging. Because what if we end up in a future where the people who can afford to charge at home have the best battery health in their EVs, but those who can't afford to charge at home have really poor battery health in their EVs, and they're losing value with their EVs because they've been fast charging so much? That would be a strange, different future, but I think we may end up seeing enough charging infrastructure installed and supported to avoid that.
All right, we have gotten to the bottom of this. Okay, 18650 is the model number. Jordan was being serious. Serious. Sean can confirm that he's got 18650s in his cordless drill. And here you go, Justin. You can buy a single 18650 battery for $3 to $7 each. So that's why when you take 7,200 Tesla batteries, that's why you get to a $30,000 to $40,000 cost. I just learned a hell of a lot right here from the chat.
I think the Tesla batteries currently cost about $15,000 to $20,000 to make, but your point is well taken.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's definitely interesting. And I know this, we're supposed to hit on news topics. I wanted to talk a little bit with you today about the new Lexus that was just announced, the RZ450E, but maybe we'll have to have that conversation on the forum and on Friday's show. Can I bring up a few other questions here that are coming through for you, Justin?
For sure.
John's got another good one. What does maintaining and caring for the EV battery look like? Is it nothing more than what we've been describing with like just staying within the charge thresholds?
So you want to charge to 100% only whenever you need 100%. So when you're going on a road trip, charge to 100%. Otherwise, charge to 80%. If you're like me, where you don't live near any fast chargers, I mean, the nearest one to me is like 25 miles away. I actually charge to 90%. Sure, that might be doing a little bit more degradation to the battery, but I might need that extra 10%. Another thing you can do is to make sure that you follow everything in the owner's manual, because that is going to be giving you the specifics to the battery chemistry that is in your actual EV. Because a 2017 Chevy Bolt is going to have a different battery chemistry than an IONIQ 5 or a Tesla Model 3. Battery chemistry is going to be the large determining factor for how you need to take care of your EV's battery. So make sure and pay attention to that.
Justin, does this become in the future, does this become the distinction or the same feeling as, okay, Subarus have a boxer engine and I don't know, well, I was going to say Mazda, but some Mazdas also have okay, my Ford just has an inline six. Is that where this eventually goes? And then as consumers, I don't really care because it's all pretty much, I get the same result? Or could it never be quite like that?
It's all about the pace of science and innovation. And here's where I think things are going to go. And we might have to wrap it up here, but we're looking at a decade ahead of constant innovation where we can't really keep up. And I had to think about this myself before buying my first electric vehicle. Do I want to buy one now or wait for something better? There's always going to be something better for the next decade. Always. I mean, in 2024, you're going to be deciding on, well, should I buy now or wait till the first solid state battery comes out in a year? That could be groundbreaking, right? Well, what about in 2025, whenever the next iteration of solid state batteries comes out with a 600-mile range or whatever the case may be? It's not really worth losing sleep over at this point, but I do think your point is correct that there's never going to be a settled upon standard where everyone's using one type of battery, one type of power delivery. There's going to be a lot of different changes and options and price points.
Yeah. All right, one more. I'm going to hit you with one more, and then I want to remind everyone before we do, go to Apple Podcasts, go to Spotify, type in YAA Electric. Please subscribe to the podcast, give it a like, give it a review. We really appreciate it. And James put an awesome intro and outro on that, so really go check it out. It's good stuff. From Noni's Pizza or Nani's Pizza. Can you set the charge rate / speed at the public fast chargers? For example, if you have an 800-volt car like your IONIQ 5 or maybe the Audi e-tron or the Porsche Taycan, but you're going to spend over an hour shopping, could you set the rate / speed?
No, you can't. Now, what's interesting about this is that if you plug in and you actually fill up your battery in 20 minutes and you're still charging, you will likely end up getting charged idling fees just for
Wow.
sitting there and not charging. Now, it's not going to be like $100, but it might end up being $5 extra because of idling fees. Not to mention, if other people are waiting to use that station, they're all going to hate you. Fortunately, a lot of malls and shopping centers have been installing their own level 2 chargers, which are perfect for what you're looking for. So if you're ever in that situation, I'd recommend searching on PlugShare, which is the common app for finding all chargers that are available to the public. Search on PlugShare, see if there's a level 2 charger, a slower charger where you need to go shopping. And I bet there is, especially if you live in a pro EV area.
That's super interesting, Justin. Thanks for sharing that. And all sorts of great comments coming through. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Learning Fast. Thank you, Intelligent Car Buying. Thank you to everyone who's here with us. Christopher just subscribed to the podcast. We really, really do appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm learning a lot with you guys, and I look forward to expanding the horizons further. And there's just so much to talk about with EVs. And Zach, you know that we're going to be going down so many different rabbit holes and learning so much physics and chemistry together throughout this podcast, right?
But, big but, because I'm reflecting back now to 10th grade Zach, who was afraid of physics and chemistry. We're going to make it approachable. That's what we're
Yes.
passionate about. That's what I'm passionate about. If any of you out there know people who are thinking about buying an EV or have questions about this stuff, point them in our direction. Just tell them to search YAA Electric. Justin, you're an awesome steward of our time, helping us learn all sorts of interesting stuff. We'll be back on Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern. What's that make it? 8 a.m. Pacific?
Yes, it does.
All right, I'll be here. How about you?
For sure.
Maybe we'll even have the green screen set up by then. Tune in.
We'll make it a goal.
Sounds good. Thanks, Justin, as always. See you guys on Friday.
Thank you.